I just think that this whole idea that Donald Trump is trying to push really just doesn't stay with the American people. He should move on to other issues and shouldn't be taking political advice from Vladimir Putin, who I can't remember the last time he won a Democratic election.
That's a good point.
You know, guys, is it just me, or does it feel like nearly every single day now I am coming at you with a brand new 5-alarm fire for our democracy? And I mean, today is really no different, because after Donald Trump met Putin in Alaska, he decided that he was going to go out there and start parroting Putin's talking points again, all in an effort to wage another attack against our elections. And one of the things that I really kind of worry about sometimes is that by everything being a 5-alarm fire, some people are going to start to think that nothing is a 5-alarm fire. People are going to grow desensitized to the authoritarian takeover that is currently underway right here in the United States. And especially when we're talking about our elections, I mean, it is one of the fundamental building blocks of our democracy. And so if we let Donald Trump and his minions have their way, it is going to have devastating consequences for this country. And so not only are they trying to wage a war down in Texas by trying to redistrict in the middle of the decade, which is just completely unprecedented at the behest of the president, but listen to how Donald Trump is now taking election advice from Vladimir Putin himself. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Oh, Vladimir Putin said something, one of the most interesting things. He said, your election was rigged because you have mail-in voting. He said mail-in voting every election. He said no country has mail-in voting. It's impossible to have mail-in voting and have honest elections. And he said that to me. It was very interesting because we talked about 2020. He said, you won that election by so much. And that's how he got it. He said, and if you would have won, we wouldn't have had a war. You'd have all these millions of people alive now instead of dead. And he said, and you lost it because of mail-in voting. It was a rigged election. But mail-in voting, Sean.
It is so embarrassing just how easy it is to manipulate the moron in chief, Donald Trump. Putin told Trump exactly what he wants to hear. Donald Trump has been railing against mail-in ballots and stolen elections and rigged 2020 for the past 4 years. And what did Putin have to do? He shows up in Alaska and he starts stroking Trump's ego by playing into all of these conspiracies that Donald Trump is bought into. It is so damn embarrassing. And what's even more shocking than that is that he is now parroting these talking points about mail-in ballots, trying to say that, well, we can't have mail-in ballots now, guys, because how are we supposed to have free and fair elections in the United States with mail-in ballots? We can't do that. And if you guys think that Donald Trump is joking about going after mail-in ballots, I would caution you to doing so. Because the very next day when he sat down with Zelensky and other European leaders, he went on another tangent about this mail-in ballots.
Mail-in ballots are corrupt. Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots. And we, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible that we get rid of mail-in ballots. So we're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt. And you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them because of what's happened. Massive fraud all over the place.
He is such a dumbass. We are not the only country in the world that uses mail-in ballots. In fact, there are 30 plus other countries that use some form of mail-in ballots. And you know that one of those countries is? Russia. Russia uses mail-in ballots. Now, the elections over in Russia, they are not fair to begin with, so not that it really matters. But for Putin to come over to America and say, hey, guys, you really need to get rid of those mail-in ballots when they use them in Russia, and then Donald Trump has the gall to go out there and start parroting these talking points. I mean, it is so damn embarrassing. But this shows you guys the authoritarian nature of Donald Trump. This guy is not going to leave office voluntarily. This guy is going to try to hold on to power as long as he possibly can. This is about keeping any Democrat out of office. He wants to make sure that he is rigging the system in advance because he knows damn well that if the Democrats take over the House, if they take back the Senate, then Donald Trump is going to be stopped in his tracks. That is what Donald Trump is actually concerned about here. And so we need to push back against this whole idea that mail-in ballots are somehow fraudulent, that mail-in ballots somehow mean that elections are not free and fair elections. It is just a bunch of bullshit. And you can hear here that he is serious. He's talking about having the best legal minds crafting up executive orders to try to remove mail-in ballots all over the country. Now, does he have the actual power to do this? Of course not. Elections are handled at the state level. Whatever happened to states' rights, Donald Trump? This is a five-alarm fire, guys. This is another attack on our democracy. They are trying to rig the system down in Texas. They are trying to rig the system nationwide with these mail-in ballots. And Donald Trump thinks that by issuing an executive order, that he's going to be able to garner more favor in the upcoming midterms. That is what this is all about. Now, luckily for us, most of the American people, a pretty good majority, knows that mail-in ballots are a free and fair way to vote. And I wanted to go ahead and take a look at some of this polling because I found a little bit of it interesting. Check out where the numbers were in 2020 versus where they are now.
How do voters in general feel about mail-in voting?
Yeah, they feel that Donald Trump is full of BS. What are we talking about here? Let's take a look here. Allow anyone to vote earlier by absentee. In 2020, it was about 2/3. You get 65%. Years after years after years that Donald Trump has been complaining about mail-in voting. Where'd the numbers stand in 2024? Basically the same. 60% of voters say that anyone should be allowed to vote either early or by absentee without needing an excuse. And that actually includes, get this, even 37% of Republicans. You have a substantial portion of Republicans who believe that voters should be back allowed to vote either early or absentee without an excuse. So the bottom line is the American people aren't with Donald Trump. They think he's full of it.
So I think that there are two ways that you can read this polling. One could say, yeah, this is a clear majority. The American people clearly understand that people should have the right, they should have the opportunity to use mail-in ballots. That's one way to read it. But the other way is that that is a 5-point swing downward in just 4 years, which is not good. And I think that is why it is so important that we push back against these claims that mail-in balloting is somehow not safe. It is important that we remind the American people that there has never been any outcome determinative fraud that has been found in mail-in ballots. It is a free and fair way to vote. Not only is it convenient for the voter, but we have put systems in place to make sure that election fraud isn't occurring with mail-in ballots. It is so, so important that we continue to reiterate and hit on these points because Donald Trump, until at least the midterms, is going to be hammering on this message that mail-in ballots need to be done away with. It is so damn important, guys. This next bit of polling I wanted to show you is how people feel about the 2020 election. As you guys know, Donald Trump has been railing against this for the last 4 years. He says the election was stolen from him. He said it was rigged. It was taken from him. Let's see what the American people think about those claims.
How do voters feel about the 2020 election now?
Yeah, exactly right. This is all based upon the Fugazi idea that Biden didn't legitimately win the election. But again, voters think that Donald Trump is full of it. Biden's 2020 election was legit. Look at this. In December of 2020, look at that. It was 60%. In December of 2024, again, after Donald Trump has been arguing year after year after year that somehow that the election wasn't legit, which of course everybody who knows what they're talking about disagrees with them on because the election was legit. The voters are with the side of truth in this situation. 63% of them believe that Biden's win was legit, despite the garbage coming out of Donald Trump's mouth.
Now, I was actually a little surprised by this particular polling. It went from 60% to 63% of people saying that, yes, of course, the 2020 election was free and fair. It was a legitimate election. Biden won fair and square. And you might say that, if that's a 3-point swing, it's maybe in the, the margin of error. But at least, with Donald Trump out there, people in the MAGA movement out there trying to cast doubt in the 2020 election, trying to say that it was stolen, trying to say that it was rigged, I would imagine that that number would have at least dropped by a couple points. So this particular poll gave me a little bit of hope in the American people, starting to realize that Donald Trump is full of shit. that there was no evidence provided that Biden somehow rigged or stole the election in 2020. I think that this is a positive sign for the American people. And I think that's why, again, it is so important that we continue to hammer on this message that mail-in ballots are just fine. They are just fine. And when you get a little bit more particular on that polling, you could ask people, well, do you think mail-in ballots, what is the confidence that they were counted correctly? Check out where the American people stand here.
So let's talk about mail-in voting, right? Mail votes counted as the voters intended. Voters who are confident that that was the case. 59% of voters were in fact confident, the clear majority in 2020. And of course, we just had an election in 2024. Look at that. 75% of voters believe that, in fact, the mail votes were counted as intended. And of course, this rise in confidence is due to Republicans going from 19% to 72%. I just think that this whole idea that Donald Trump is trying to push really just doesn't stay with the American people. He should move on to other issues and shouldn't be taking political advice from Vladimir Putin, who I can't remember the last time he won a Democratic election.
So again, I think there's a couple different ways that we can look at this, guys. Back in 2020, 59% of people said that mail-in votes were counted as they were intended. And then that swung all the way up to 75% in 2024. But what happened in 2024, guys? Donald Trump won the election, which means there are more Republicans out there, people in the MAGA movement out there, who are more than willing to say that, of course, mail-in ballots were counted correctly because my guy won. If Kamala Harris or another Democrat had won, do we really think that that number would be as high as 75%? I really don't think so. Donald Trump has just done so much damage in the faith and trust in our institutions. He has done so much damage as far as people trusting that we have free and fair elections in this country. And so I think there are so many Republicans out there who are only going to believe it is a free and fair election if Donald Trump won. Maybe, just maybe, if another Republican won. And I think that that is not a really great place for us to be here in the United States. If only one side of the aisle believes that we have free and fair election, only when their guy wins, but if their guy loses, everything's rigged, stolen, and messed up, that is not a good place for us to be. And Harry Enton was absolutely right here. Maybe we shouldn't be taking advice from Vladimir Putin. Putin over in Russia rigs those elections in his favor. Why would we be taking election advice from one of America's biggest adversaries? It makes absolutely no sense. It is completely embarrassing that a president of the United States is just parroting these Putin talking points without a care in the world. But he has a plan, guys. He is serious about wiping out mail-in ballots. He is going to try to issue an executive order to try to do away with mail-in ballots. It's going to be fought in the courts, but that is what Donald Trump does. He pushes up against these rules. He pushes up against these norms. He pushes up against these laws. And he doesn't have a whole lot of pushback when it comes to the Republican Party. And they are the people who control the House, the Senate, the executive, and even the Supreme Court. So it is so, so important that we make this the issue, the five-alarm fire, that it actually is. Donald Trump is not going to leave office willingly. He is trying to rig the midterms in advance, not only with this mail-in balloting, but down in Texas as well. They are trying to redistrict in the middle of the decade because Donald Trump said, hey, Greg Abbott, I want you to find me 5 extra seats. Donald Trump knows that he is likely to lose in the midterms, and he is doing whatever it is that he can to try to cheat instead. Because Donald Trump is a beta little bitch who cannot stand the idea of actually losing. And he knows that with all this shit that he's doing in office, that the American people are likely going to try to hold him accountable in the 2026 midterms, and therefore he is trying to rig the system in advance. So again, guys, we got to keep on pushing this message out there. We got to remind the American people that mail-in balloting is a free and fair way to vote. It is a safe way to vote. There has never been any proven fraud, widespread fraud when it comes to mail-in balloting, because Donald Trump is serious about trying to hold on to power by any means possible. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that pushes back against this right-wing media ecosystem that just launders all of these bad faith efforts for Donald Trump and the Republican Party day in and day out. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. Of course, that is free. If you guys want to go a step above and beyond that and help me produce these videos, you can become a member right here on YouTube for as little as $3 a month. Or you can jump over to a Substack and find me there at politiscape.substack.com. And as I will continue to say, guys, fighting back against the MAGA media machine and this authoritarian rot in the MAGA movement, it has got to be a team effort. I'll see you guys on the next one.